My brothers and sisters, I come before you not to entertain, but to confront every soul here with a burning, life-altering reality. A voice has broken through the clamor of this world. You sense it, don't you? That deep stirring in your heart, the whisper that won't leave you alone. You try to mute it. You drown it out with noise, with busyness, distraction. But it persists, and it cannot be silenced. Listen. In the stillness of your being, there it is, a voice calling you higher, deeper, truer. It convicts, it challenges, it draws you out of pretension, complacency, hypocrisy. It strips away the veneer you polish for public display. That voice isn't about comfort, it's about transformation. Distractions are your enemy. Every shiny object, every fleeting pleasure is bait. They promise relief but deliver bondage. You surrender your time, your energy, your integrity for little crowns that rust, for applause that fades. And why? Because you've stopped listening to the voice that whispers to your spirit who you really are, and who you're called to become. What if every decision you make was filtered through that voice? What if, in every moment, you paused and asked, does this align with the call to be different, radically different? What if you ran from the comfortable norm and embraced the cost of obedience? Obedience isn't easy. It costs your pride, it shatters your agenda, it humbles you, it makes you depend on something beyond yourself, and that's exactly its purpose. That dependence breeds humility. Humility leads to repentance. Repentance births clarity. Clarity transforms everything. This voice will not let you rest in the shallows. It demands that you dive deep, and some of you fight that. You'd rather stay shallow, safe in routines that keep your conscience dozing. But the voice won't relent. You try to numb your soul with television, social media, mindless entertainment, busy work. Yet when the distractions end, it returns. That uncomfortable ache, it's grace. It's a summons out of the cage you built. You say you long for purpose, but you seek it in the wrong places. You pursue achievement, prestige, popularity, approval, and those illusions disappoint. Why? Because purpose isn't found in achievement. It's found in obedience. Obedience to the voice that unsettles you, to the voice that says there is something more, something greater than your own will. That voice calls you to surrender, not to a glamorous plan, not to a dream concocted in your mind, but to a story bigger than you. A story that demands discomfort, risk, rejection. A story that invites you to die to yourself daily, to pick up a cross in your relationships, your integrity, your speech, your finances, your habits, your desires. To die to your version of comfort, control, and self-promotion, and in that death you'll find life, real life. For too long, so many have lived the half-life. Isn't that your secret confession? You fight exhaustion with caffeine and ambition, but find no rest. You pursue significance, but end each day emotionally bankrupt. Why? Because you're living for applause, you're living for comfort, you're living for yourself, and you cannot live for both yourself and this voice. One must die, a sacrifice that is pleasing, acceptable, and memorable. Have you forgotten that? Your sacrifice isn't measured by volume, it's measured by relevance, by what costs you, by what costs your agenda and your preference. When that voice nudges you to forgiveness, but you hold onto the grudge, what does it profit you? The voice is calling you to cleanse, to heal, to bear burdens that aren't meant to crown you, but you cling. You argue, you defend, you harden, and thus you silence that voice. There is a cost to be marked, to say no to the near occasion of failure, even when it means missing out on the fun, to say yes to integrity, even when the world whispers it's unimportant, to hold a stander, regardless of culture, trend, or pressure, to value truth above popularity, holiness above tolerance of sin. That's the voice working. Some of you are afraid. Afraid it will cost too much. Afraid you'll be too lonely. Afraid you'll fail. But consider this. What cost have you already paid for unbelief, compromise, self-reliance? You may not see their price tag, but mark it. It's filling your soul with discontent. It's robbing you of joy, peace, significance, and the cost of obedience, even if costly, yields a return far beyond comprehension, a soul at peace because it walks in the will of that voice. You may lose some friends, but you gain a family. You may lose your title, your comfort, your acceptance, but you'll gain purpose, conviction, and identity. Don't misunderstand. The way of obedience is full of suffering. It demands courage. It demands perseverance. You will be misunderstood. You will be rejected. You will be overlooked. But when you obey, you're aligning with the one who orders your steps. His perspective is eternal. Your momentary suffering is worth it for the glory it brings, now and forever. Would you rather be applauded momentarily, or be recognized when it truly matters? Hear this call. The voice doesn't speak to lead you into escapism. It speaks to send you into the world, into broken homes, into corrupt systems, into places of need, into lives languishing in sin. It's not a voice to hush worldly passion. It's a voice to redirect it. Redirect your ambition from self to service. Redirect your creativity from self, promotion to king, and building. Redirect your resources from accumulation to generosity. Redirect your intellect from self-glorifying arguments to truthful, winsome proclamation. Redirect your affection from temporal vanities to eternal treasures. You were created for an appointment. You have unique gifts, circumstances, influence. Offering them back in obedience isn't just a suggestion. It's worship. It's war. Spiritual warfare doesn't require your permission, but it requires your availability. You can't claim ignorance when that voice has spoken. You can't excuse apathy as busyness. You can't cover music on your tablets and say you're fed. If that voice has broken your heart, even a little, then it will continue until your heart is wholly its home. Some will want to follow this voice, but only partway. They create compromises. I'll obey here, but not there. They sanitize the message to suit their flesh, but there is no halfway. That voice demands total surrender. Partial obedience is disobedience. Tithing 10% and withholding 90%. Obedience, no. Serving when convenient, that's convenience. Serving costly, that's calling. And when your obedience costs more than your check, your time, your comfort, then you know. That voice is not comforting. You are hearing the voice of the one who saves, sanctifies, and sends. If you choose obedience, rejoice. Expect resistance. Expect trials. Expect grit. Expect the sacrifice to feel like death, but also expect resurrection. Expect that the one who speaks will provide the way. Expect that he will write your life into a narrative more beautiful than any you could craft. You may start unnoticed, but you will finish known, not for self, but for him, not for applause, but for honor, not for temporal gain, but for eternal reward. And what is the alternative? A life that shrinks, that murmurs, that regrets. A life stained by half-obedience, a life where the will of man suppresses the voice of heaven. And if you do this to yourself, if you put that voice on hold for decades, you might wake up in regret. You might find at the end that your life achieved much, but accomplished little that matters. Your competence netted you comfort. Your popularity bought you influence, but in the end, irrelevant. So respond, beloved. Respond with repentance where you have resisted. Respond with trust where you have feared. Respond with faith where you have doubted. Respond with courage where you have conformed. Respond with faithfulness where you have wandered. Respond with passion where you have been cold. Respond with generosity where you have hoarded. Respond with service where you have been apathetic, and you will start to hear that voice clearer, the voice that shatters idols, that frees captives, that compels justice, mercy, humility, that endures all things. That changes cities, families, institutions, nations. This is no mere motivational fluff. It's a battle cry. It's a divine summons. It's a narrow way. It's costly, but it leads to life, real life, and it is the hope for the world. Stop pretending. Stop delaying. Stop bargaining. Today, begin with a posture. Speak, for your servant hears. And then obey, relentlessly, wholeheartedly, joyfully, and your life, like a city on a hill, like a lamp on a stand, will speak louder than words. There is a deep, undeniable voice stirring within, calling not for comfort or ease, but for full surrender. It doesn't allow compromise or partial allegiance. This voice demands total, radical, and costly obedience that redefines how you live, think, speak, and sacrifice. Modern life seduces you into apathy through entertainment, ambition, and convenience. These distractions mute the voice that calls you to eternal significance. Real purpose isn't found in success or popularity, but in daily death to self and alignment with that inner summons. Following this voice comes with a cost: rejection, loneliness, discomfort, even suffering. But that cost pales in comparison to the reward: a life of peace, purpose, clarity, and eternal impact. You may lose temporary things, but you'll gain what truly matters. The voice isn't merely informational, it demands a response. Ignoring it leads to regret and irrelevance. Obeying it leads to transformation, joy, and eternal significance. You must choose, now, whether to yield completely or live a life that merely echoes empty ambition. There is a voice, clearer than thunder to the heart, that has ears to hear, cutting through the layers of noise, entertainment, and self-preservation that you've carefully constructed. You know this voice. You've heard it when you were alone in your room, staring at the ceiling with questions that success, money, or the approval of others could not answer. You felt it in the deep discomfort when you knew what was right, but the right path was inconvenient, costly, and unknown. You've sensed it in moments when all the world went quiet, and you were confronted with something far bigger than yourself: an invitation to surrender, a call to follow, a summons to obedience. Not the easy kind, not the religious routine, not the half-hearted morality that's convenient when people are watching, but radical obedience, the kind that redefines your entire existence. This voice does not coddle, it does not flatter, it does not negotiate, it calls, and when it calls, it demands everything. It breaks you and builds you, it exposes you and transforms you, it shows you what you really are, so that it can make you into what you were truly meant to be. And that transformation cannot happen unless you're willing to lose the life you're so desperately trying to keep. Radical obedience is not a part-time commitment. It's not attending a gathering once a week and living the rest of your life on autopilot. It's not sprinkling in a few good deeds here and there to soothe a guilty conscience. It's not quoting verses while ignoring the very things those verses demand. Radical obedience begins when everything in you wants to say no, but you say yes. When your comfort is threatened, your reputation is on the line, your plans are dismantled, and still you kneel and say, "I'm listening, I will obey." It's easy to say you follow the voice when it asks you to do things that don't cost you. But the true test of obedience is when it costs everything: your dreams, your schedule, your ego, your control. When the call is to forgive someone who's wounded you deeply, when the call is to walk away from a relationship that compromises your purity, when the call is to speak truth and risk rejection, when the call is to empty your bank account to provide for someone else's need, then we see whether you truly obey, or if you've been following only your own voice dressed up in religious language. The voice does not call you to be safe. It calls you to be holy, and holiness often means walking where the path is narrow, unpopular, and lonely. It's walking away from things that others applaud. It's choosing integrity over influence. It's choosing purity over popularity. It's choosing servanthood over being celebrated. It's not glamorous. It won't trend on social media, but it's real, and the ones who answer that voice truly answer it, find something that no amount of worldly success can give. They find peace in the storm, clarity in confusion, and a joy that suffering cannot destroy. There is a deception many live under, the idea that you can have a little of both, a little obedience and a little compromise, a little surrender and a little control, but this voice does not allow that. It is not interested in partial allegiance. It requires your whole life. It will not coexist with idols. It will not take second place. It is not content to be your Sunday ritual or your emergency backup plan. It is a jealous voice. It will shake you, wrestle with you, confront you, and it will keep calling until every room in the house of your heart is surrendered. Some of you have been running. You know the voice has been calling you for a long time. But you're scared of what you'll lose, scared of what people will say, scared of who you'll become if you actually go all in. And yet, the fear that's tormenting you is not greater than the bondage you're already in. Because the truth is, you're already a slave. To sin, to opinion, to comfort, to success, to self. The voice isn't calling you into slavery. It's calling you out of it. It's calling you to freedom, but that freedom isn't cheap. It costs everything. You cannot obey this voice and still be obsessed with what others think of you. You cannot obey this voice and still chase the applause of men. You cannot obey this voice and live as your own master. You must die. You must surrender your will, your rights, your preferences, your plan. This obedience will make you weep. It will humble you. It will expose your pride. It will bring you to the end of yourself. But it will also raise you up. It will give you purpose. It will give you courage. It will give you the ability to stand when everyone else bows. Some of you want revival. You pray for power. You want to see lives changed, families restored, cities transformed. But what you don't realize is that revival does not come through a feeling. It comes through obedience, real obedience, costly obedience, the kind that breaks your routine and interrupts your comfort, the kind that makes you step into the lives of the broken, the addicted, the outcast, the kind that forces you to put down your phone, your pride, your distractions, and listen. This voice is not distant. It's not vague. It's not inaccessible. It's near, it's here, it's speaking, but your ears must be tuned to hear. Your heart must be willing to respond, and your life must be surrendered enough to follow. Some of you have grown deaf, not because the voice has gone silent, but because your heart has grown hard. You've explained away conviction. You've covered your ears with excuses. You've drowned the voice with noise. But deep down you still hear it. You still feel that nudge, that whisper, that fire you can't extinguish. Obedience is not just about saying yes to a list of moral rules. It's about relationship. It's about trust. The voice calls you to radical obedience because it wants to shape you, not control you. It wants to refine you, not reduce you. But you must walk through the fire. You must pass through the testing. You must endure the breaking, because only the broken can truly obey. Only the humble can truly follow. Only the empty can truly be filled. You're waiting for a sign, but the call has already come. You're asking for more clarity, but the next step is already in front of you. It's not about hearing more, it's about obeying what you've already heard. The voice doesn't speak for curiosity, it speaks for action. Every time you delay obedience, you harden your heart. Every time you ignore that whisper, it gets quieter. Not because it's leaving, but because you're becoming numb. But it's still there, still calling, still waiting for a response that goes beyond lip service. Obedience isn't glamorous. It often looks like obscurity. It often feels like sacrifice. But in that obscurity, in that hidden place of faithfulness, a life is formed that cannot be shaken. Some of the most powerful people on earth are the ones you've never heard of. People who said yes in secret, people who gave when it hurt, who served when it was inconvenient, who spoke the truth when it cost them. That's where heaven moves. That's where the earth trembles. That's where legacy begins. You cannot be transformed without obedience. You can listen to messages, attend services, read books, but unless you obey, you're only deceiving yourself. Radical obedience is the proof that you believe. It's the evidence that the voice hasn't just moved you. It has mastered you. And when it has mastered you, your life changes. Your thoughts change. Your relationships change. Your ambitions change. You no longer live for self, but for something greater. You become dangerous to darkness. You become a vessel of hope. You become the very thing this world desperately needs, a person who listens, follows, and obeys. Completely, you may not feel ready. You may not feel worthy. You may not feel capable, but the voice isn't asking for your qualifications. It's asking for your yes. That is where it begins, a simple, surrendered, painful yes. And when you give that, you'll realize this was what you were made for. Not comfort, not applause, not safety, but obedience, costly, beautiful, radical obedience. You live in a world that is constantly telling you to avoid discomfort. Every commercial, every app, every philosophy of modern life says the same thing. Make it easy, make it fast, make it comfortable. That's the spirit of the age. It preaches comfort as the highest virtue and convenience as the path to fulfillment. And without even realizing it, many have believed the lie. You've begun to believe that if something is hard, it must not be right. That if something costs you, it must not be from above. That struggle is a sign of failure, but that is not the voice of truth. That is the voice of deception, because the way of life, the way of purpose, the way of truth, it is the way of dying to self. And there is nothing comfortable about that. Comfort lulls you into passivity. It whispers, you've done enough. You deserve rest. You've sacrificed plenty. But what it's really doing is pulling you away from what matters most. You stop risking. You stop pressing in. You start negotiating with obedience. You take shortcuts. You tolerate compromise. You justify laziness. Comfort has a way of making you forget why you started. You were called to purpose, but now you're simply managing appearances, maintaining your reputation, protecting your image. What once was fire in your bones becomes a flicker barely kept alive under the blankets of distraction and ease. And if comfort is the sedative, distraction is the chain, it binds you, not with iron, but with attention. Every ping, every scroll, every fleeting piece of entertainment, it pulls you further from focus, from discipline, from clarity. You say you don't have time to pray, but you've given hours to a glowing screen. You say you can't memorize truth, but you've memorized trends, lyrics, hashtags. You've trained your mind to absorb noise, but not reflect on meaning. The very thing that was meant to elevate your calling has now buried it under endless waves of content, and you don't even realize it. You are being shaped every day by what you consume, by what you tolerate, by what you seek. And when comfort and distraction rule your day, you slowly forget that you were created for a purpose far greater than your pleasure. You were made to shake the earth, to live with eternal weight, to leave a mark not through popularity, but through sacrifice. But when you bow to ease, that mark fades. You become just another soul who traded a calling for convenience, just another voice echoing the culture instead of confronting it, just another heart that once burned but now barely flickers. And the danger is this: comfort and distraction don't look dangerous. They look normal. That's what makes them so lethal. They rarely come as outright rebellion. They come as harmless diversions, small compromises, subtle shifts in priority. You don't realize how far you've drifted until you try to go deep, and you find your heart is too shallow. You try to stand firm, and you realize you've grown soft. You want to follow truth, but you've let other voices drown it out. So instead of walking in purpose, you walk in circles. Instead of running the race, you sit on the sidelines, cheering others on while your own strength withers. You cannot have purpose without discomfort. You cannot live for eternity and expect to be applauded by a world obsessed with the temporary. You cannot carry your cross and your cushions at the same time. There must be a dying, a painful, deliberate rejection of the lie that says your life is about you. That says your convenience matters more than your character. That says your feelings are the final authority, because they're not. They never have been, and they never will be. Real purpose requires sacrifice. It demands attention. It demands focus. It demands that you say no to good things so that you can say yes to what matters most. You can't scroll endlessly and expect to hear clearly. You can't chase every opportunity and expect to fulfill your assignment. You must learn to be still, to be disciplined, to be ruthless with the things that dull your spirit and weaken your resolve. That means deleting what doesn't sharpen you, walking away from conversations that compromise you, turning down opportunities that distract you, not because they're evil, but because they're not essential. This is where many lose their way. They think the enemy will come with pitchforks and horns. No, he often comes with distractions. With ease, with popularity, with comfort. He comes offering shortcuts to what only sacrifice can earn. He doesn't need to destroy you outright. He just needs to delay your obedience. Just enough distraction to make you ineffective. Just enough comfort to make you passive. Just enough busyness to keep you from intimacy. And before you know it, you've missed your moment, not because you rebelled, but because you drifted. Drifting is subtle. It doesn't feel dramatic. It feels reasonable. I'm tired. I've earned this. It's just one evening. But over time, those little indulgences become patterns. Those patterns become habits. And those habits become your character. Before long, the fire that once burned in you is a memory. You talk about passion like it's something you used to have. You remember the days you wept in conviction. The days you woke up early to listen. The days you turned down distraction to spend time in secret, and you wonder where it went. It didn't disappear, it was buried under the very things you justified. The path to purpose is not paved with comfort. It's paved with sacrifice, discipline, stillness, and hard choices. And yes, there is joy. There is deep, sustaining, soul-anchoring joy, but it's not the kind of joy the world offers. It's not the joy of mindless entertainment or temporary escape. It's the joy that comes from obedience, from knowing that every tear, every rejection, every long night, every lonely stand it matters. It has weight. It echoes in eternity. That's the joy that cannot be taken from you. But it only comes to those who endure, to those who refuse to sell their purpose for a plate of comfort. It's time to confront the places in your life where you've grown soft, the moments where you've chosen comfort over calling, the areas where you've allowed distraction to dilute your passion. It's time to shut the door on the noise, to silence the voices that pull you away from truth, to cancel the appointments that feed your flesh but starve your spirit. It's time to live with intention again, to fast from the noise, to return to the quiet, to rediscover the discipline of hearing and obeying, not out of obligation, but out of desperation, because you know what's at stake. There are lives on the other side of your obedience. There are battles that won't be won until you show up. There are chains that won't be broken until you speak. There is darkness that won't retreat until you shine. But if you're too busy being entertained, you'll miss it. If you're too invested in staying comfortable, you'll avoid the fight. And if you avoid the fight, you may survive, but you'll never overcome. You'll never walk in the fullness of what was written for you. You'll never know what could have been. This is a wake-up call, a call to come out of the fog, to put aside the things that entangle, to stop treating holy things like casual hobbies. The time is short, the days are urgent, and you were not made to waste them. You were not born to blend in. You were not created to coast. You were not filled with power to live passively. You were called, anointed, commissioned for purpose. Eternal purpose, but it will cost you. It will cost you late nights in prayer when you'd rather sleep. It will cost you fasting when you'd rather feast. It will cost you standing for truth when it isolates you. It will cost you integrity when shortcuts are available. It will cost you forgiveness when bitterness feels justified. It will cost you, but in that cost you will find life, real life. Not the shallow imitation the world offers, but the kind of life that can endure storms, face giants, and leave a legacy. Comfort makes you forget you're in a war. It makes you think the battle is optional. But it's not. You're in it, whether you fight or not. And distraction is the perfect weapon, because it doesn't feel dangerous, but it kills potential. It neutralizes calling. It numbs conviction. So don't wait for a dramatic fall to realize you've drifted. Look now, search your heart now. Where have you settled? Where have you compromised? Where have you grown dull? Refuse to let your life be a monument to wasted time. Refuse to let the comforts of this world steal the treasures of the next. Refuse to let your calling be drowned in convenience. Rise, wake up, strip off what hinders, tune your ears again, embrace discomfort, embrace silence, embrace the narrow road, because that road leads to life. That road leads to purpose. That road leads to freedom, and only those willing to reject distraction and abandon comfort will ever find it. True obedience isn't measured by the parts of your life you're willing to give up, but by the parts you refuse to hold back. It doesn't begin where it's easy. It begins exactly where it hurts. It begins when your plans are on the altar, when your dreams are being tested, when your comfort is no longer your compass, when your reputation is less important than your surrender. That's where obedience begins, not in emotion, not in impulse, but in sacrifice. Painful, deliberate, full surrender sacrifice. Because the truth is, true obedience will cost you everything. There is a kind of obedience that lives in the shallow end. The kind that only says yes when the benefits are obvious. The kind that serves when it's seen. That gives when it doesn't hurt. That follows as long as the path is smooth. But that's not obedience. That's agreement. That's compromise disguised as devotion. That's the kind of obedience that withers when storms come. That folds under pressure. That disappears when tested. But the obedience that heaven honors is forged in fire. It's born in the lonely place, in the tension between fear and faith, when everything in you wants to run and you stay. That kind of obedience will break you. It will crush your pride. It will offend your plans. It will shatter your illusions. But in that crushing, you are made new, because you cannot walk into the fullness of what's been prepared for you while still clinging to the life you planned for yourself. You can't hold onto your will and still carry the cross. One will always cancel the other, and so many try to live in both worlds, saying all the right things, singing all the right songs, but never truly letting go. You might be respected, you might be successful, you might even be admired, but if obedience hasn't cost you something, it hasn't shaped you, and if it hasn't shaped you, It hasn't touched the deepest places of your heart. Real obedience reaches into the private decisions, the hidden motives, the secret ambitions, the quiet compromises. It demands more than behavior. It demands transformation. It doesn't stop at what you do. It digs into why you do it, who you do it for, and what you're willing to risk. This is where many turn back. They start the journey, but when the path narrows, they hesitate. When the cost rises, they negotiate. When the fire gets close, they retreat. But there's no crown without the cross, no glory without surrender, no power without purity, and purity only comes through fire, through loss, through tears, through the daily dying of self. That's the obedience no one applauds, but heaven records it. That's the obedience that builds legacy, not platform. That's the obedience that carries eternal weight. True obedience will make you look foolish. It will make you misunderstood. It will make people question your decisions, question your sanity, question your motive. Because obedience is rarely logical. It's rarely safe. It's rarely convenient. But that's why it's powerful. Obedience walks when it doesn't know where the path leads. It gives when it doesn't know how the provision will come. It speaks when silence would be safer. It acts when delay would be easier. Obedience does not wait for understanding. It moves at the sound of the voice. And when that voice says go, the answer is yes, even if it means walking alone. You may be asked to leave things behind, people, positions, opportunities, dreams, not because they're evil, but because they've become an idol, because they've become louder than the voice, because they've become obstacles to intimacy. You may be asked to start over, to take the lower seat, to humble yourself, to forgive the unforgivable, to love the unlovable, to serve in obscurity, and none of it will make sense to those around you. But you weren't called to make sense. You were called to obey. Obedience will strip away your need to be in control. That's why it's terrifying, because you've built a life around knowing, around calculating risk, around minimizing loss. But obedience doesn't offer guarantees. It offers one thing: presence. The presence that comes when you let go of your agenda and take hold of the unknown. That's what makes obedience worth it. It gives you more than what you lose. You may lose comfort, but you gain courage. You may lose visibility, but you gain vision. You may lose applause, but you gain approval. You may lose your life, but you gain a kingdom. And yet you will be tempted to settle. You will be tempted to obey partially, to obey only in what makes sense, to delay, to rationalize. But partial obedience is disobedience. Delay is still rebellion. The voice doesn't call for portions. It calls for everything. And when you say yes, really say yes, you will find that the things you feared losing were never worth keeping. You will find that what you gain in return cannot be measured in earthly terms. You will find that joy flows in the valley, that peace lives in the storm, and that glory often hides in places of obscurity. Some of you have been bargaining. You've been trying to obey without letting go, trying to surrender while still clutching control, trying to serve without dying to self. And you wonder why your faith feels dry, why your strength is gone, why the fire is dim. It's because obedience has been optional, convenient, conditional, and it cannot be. The moment you treat obedience like a suggestion is the moment you forfeit the power it brings, because obedience isn't about duty, it's about alignment, and until you are fully aligned, you are living in tension. You are divided, and a divided heart cannot stand. There are decisions you need to make, things you need to lay down, conversations you need to have, steps you need to take, but you've been waiting for clarity, for timing, for confirmation. And yet, deep down, you already know the voice has spoken, the tug is there, the conviction has come. What's missing is not direction. It's obedience. The courage to say, even if it costs me everything, I will follow. That is where transformation happens. That is where power is found. That is where chains break and heaven moves. Obedience doesn't always bring quick reward. Sometimes it brings resistance. Sometimes it brings loss. Sometimes it brings long seasons of silence, of testing, of wilderness. But every step of obedience plants a seed, and every seed will bear fruit. If you don't quit, if you don't turn back, if you keep going even when nothing makes sense, that's the kind of obedience that hell fears. The kind that doesn't need validation to keep walking. The kind that doesn't flinch under fire. The kind that counts the cost and still says yes. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing. Willing to look foolish. Willing to be misunderstood. Willing to walk away. Willing to be broken. Because in that willingness, power is released. Chains are shattered. Doors are opened. Purposes are birthed. And eternity is changed. Not because you had the strength, but because you had the surrender. Many talk about obedience, but few live it. Because it's not glamorous. It doesn't trend. It doesn't stroke your ego. It's hidden. It's hard. It's costly, but it's also holy. And when you choose it, really choose it, something unexplainable happens. The weight of this world begins to lift. The opinions of others begin to fade. The fears that once bound you begin to break. And suddenly you are free, not because circumstances changed, but because you did, because you said yes, a real yes, a costly yes, a yes that marks you forever. You will never regret obedience. You may regret delay. You may regret compromise. You may regret silence. But you will never regret saying yes to the voice that called you out of darkness into light, into purpose, into truth. That voice still speaks, and it is still calling. The question is not whether it has spoken. The question is whether you will obey, fully, freely, completely, because when you do, everything changes, not always immediately, not always visibly, but always eternally.